For centuries, it stood like a watchful guardian, a mountain draped in green, its peak touching the sky. Short pause, villages clustered on its lower slopes. Farmers planted their fields in its shadow. Children chased each other along rivers that trickled from its heart. Soft smile and voice, locals called it many names, the eternal mountain, the old sentinel, because it had slept for generations. Pause, drop voice slightly. Nobody imagined that underneath its calm surface, a violent secret was slowly taking shape. The first signs were almost invisible. A tremor here, a strange, restless hush there. Cattle grew uneasy, birds vanished from the morning sky. Short pause, people felt it as a slight unease, but life went on. Markets opened, children went to school, and the mountain remained, outwardly, unchanged. Deep beneath the crust, however, something far older was waking. Molten rock, trapped for centuries, began to shift. Pressure built slowly, inch by inch. Tiny fractures widened, and hot gases gathered, like air trapped under a lid. Pause scientists later pieced together the invisible work of the Earth, but in those first quiet days, the warning was almost impossible to see. Then, on a day like any other, the ground began to tremble, stronger this time. Windows rattled, dogs howled. Farmers grabbed their tools and looked at the horizon. Short pause, minutes stretched. The air smelled faintly of sulfur. And then, without the kind of warning that sirens or scanners could give, the mountain erupted. The peak detonated into the sky. Fire and stone shot upward in a column so vast it swallowed the sun. Ash blasted outward in a black plume that climbed higher than the clouds. Longer pause for effect. What followed was devastation unlike most had ever seen. Pyroclastic flows, searing, invisible walls of gas and pulverized rock raced down the slopes at blistering speed. They moved faster than any human could run, cleaving through forests, burying homes, and consuming everything in their path. Villages that had existed for generations were gone in minutes. Roads vanished beneath hot, choking ash. Rivers boiled and changed course. Fields that had fed families for decades were turned to barren black. Pause where laughter once echoed, there was only a thin, gray silence and an endless drizzle of ash falling like cold snow. Survivors speak of running through darkness, not night, but a living night, ash blocking the light, breath stinging, the world reduced to silhouettes and screams. Mothers clutched children. Neighbors searched for neighbors. For many, it felt like the end of the world. Pause. Amid the chaos, rescue workers and scientists pushed forward. They navigated rivers of debris, they mapped the flows, and they searched for signs of life in the steaming wreckage. Geologists later discovered that pressure had been building over decades. Tiny shifts, micro-earthquakes, slight gas emissions had been recorded, but the signals were subtle and easily lost among natural background noise. Pause in short, the mountain gave whispering signs, but no clear alarm. And sometimes that is all it takes for disaster to arrive without. The eruption's reach did not end at the foot of the mountain. Ash rose into the upper atmosphere and rode jet streams across continents. For months, sunsets turned to copper and purple. Air travel was grounded across whole regions. Crops failed. Temperatures dipped as sunlight dimmed under the ash veil. Pause, slightly somber. What began as a local catastrophe became a global event. The planet itself felt the aftershock of the mountain's rage. But within the gray and the ruin, life began, slowly, to reassert itself. In the seasons that followed, survivors rebuilt with whatever resources they could salvage. Emergency shelters became temporary homes. Aid convoys brought medicine, water, and heavy equipment to clear roads and restore power. Small, hopeful lift, nature, too, moved on its own strange timetable. Pioneer plants, the tough, black soil colonizers, sprouted where lava had cooled. Insects returned, then birds. New streams carved fresh channels through hardened ash. Pause in time, green returned to certain pockets, proof that regeneration is possible even after unimaginable destruction. Scientists studied every piece of evidence they could gather. They improved monitoring technologies, installed new sensors, and developed better models for interpreting the quiet, subtle signs the Earth sometimes gives. But there is an uncomfortable truth in all of this. Even with better tools, we cannot predict everything. The Earth can surprise us, and sometimes it does, with consequences we are only beginning to understand. Communities learned in harsh ways the value of preparedness. Evacuation plans were rewritten. Early warning systems were emphasized. But beyond technology and drills, the eruption taught something deeper: humility. Pause. An understanding that human life exists within forces far older and larger than our inventions. And the human stories are the ones that stay with us. A farmer who led his family to the ridge and watched everything vanish beneath ash. A teacher who turned her classroom into a shelter. A child who, in the midst of the disaster, found a charred photograph, a reminder of ordinary days now lost. These stories are the threads that stitch the tragic tapestry into something the world can feel, understand, and learn from.